Yes. Yes. Yes.
I think they got it to live stream. Yeah, I think they were working on it.
You're live.
Live. Hot mic.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. My name is Jeff. I'm from Agent Place CT. This is part of a speaker series where we invite um, owners of businesses to come in and talk about how their business impacts and helps and supports seniors looking to age safely and effectively in their homes. We've got Gabe from Evergreen, Stephen from Stone Hall Inspection, and Mike, a partner at Magnet McKenna Law Firm. So, John, very briefly, back one. Well, they're each going to do about a 15-minute presentation. Then I'm encouraging you to ask if you have any specific questions. They're here. Take advantage of it and ask any questions that you want. We'll have both panel questions, but we're really encouraging if you have specific questions, they're here, so take advantage of it. So now I invite Gabe to come up and kick it off.
Everybody hear me? Ooh. Hi again. All right, excellent. Welcome. My name is Gabe Corridor, founder of Evergreen Daytime Senior Care. And I always talk about how I got to Evergreen really with the story of my dad, who is 85. He'll be 86 this year. And several years ago, he was diagnosed with something called mild cognitive impairment. And that set me on this journey to understand, what do folks like my dad, who are physically independent but needed some additional shepherding or support, where do they go? Right? He couldn't necessarily stay at home by himself, but he was too independent for a nursing home, which was where I was sort of pointed to, and frankly couldn't afford $10,000 to $15,000 in assisted living for as long as he's going to live. And what I found was that there are actually 42 million people in this country and growing caring for someone 65 plus or older. So instantly, about 3 years ago, I became a remote caregiver, and I joined this group of individuals. And as part of my journey to understand why do people bring their mom or dad to live with them, I talked to a ton of caregivers. Just help me understand. And what I kept hearing were the same reasons over and over again. Well, we're trying to stretch finances, or moral duty, right? They took care of us, now we want to take care of them. And also, there's this direct quote saying, we're kind of stuck between Medicaid and being rich. And so, as I spoke to these caregivers, I got the sense that they truly felt that they were doing something that for them was the right thing to do, but at the same time, they were exhausted, right? Because they were still worried, well, gosh, I'm caring for my mom, but mom might fall when I'm not looking, or I can't go out to dinner with my husband, or frankly, we haven't been on vacation for the last 3 years because we don't know who we can leave our mom or dad with. And so that was really the genesis of this journey. Furthermore, I came across some information several years ago, which now is a much more common term, this concept of the forgotten middle seniors, right? The seniors that have too much money to qualify for Medicaid, but are unsure as to whether they'll be able to afford long-term care for as long as they'll live. And this is actually the fastest growing segment of seniors in the United States, these forgotten middle seniors. And we say they're kind of forgotten, it's because, frankly, if you're on Medicaid, there's actually a fair amount of resources. And if you're independently wealthy, then you have obviously a bunch of options, but a lot of people fall in this category, and it's set to reach about 16 million seniors in 2030. And so that's why I started Evergreen. We are fundamentally a social club that promotes engagement and socialization for older adults. What I wanted to do was create an environment where folks that felt like they didn't fit in a senior center but needed a little bit more support could come and participate in a wide range of activities that stimulate their mind, stimulate their body, allow them to express themselves creatively, enjoy delicious meals. We partner with local restaurants to cater into food that people really want. We do skew healthy, but we also get requests for chili dogs and Shake Shack, and that's a part of independence as well. And we've been open for about a year. We're located in Stanford, And in the context of our talk tonight of aging in place, one of the things that I think is incredibly important for people to keep in mind is that our brains continue to form new neuronal connections no matter what age, no matter what we're going through. And that's one of the fundamental principles of Evergreen. So, how many here, to illustrate that, how many here feel like they're bad at math? Oops, I'm bad at mics. Or bad at singing. Anybody bad at singing? Okay, we've got one. How about bad at drawing? I'm bad at art. Okay. Yeah, a lot of people raise their hands out. Well, I'm here to tell you that you're not. You're not actually bad at any of those things. You just haven't learned the right components to get there successfully, or you haven't been taught them. So there's a 5-day self-portrait course that takes place. And on day 1, the participants of this class are asked to draw their self-portraits. So now you can see, they're not terrible, but they're not great either, right? The thing about drawing, a lot of people say, oh, gosh, I'm bad at drawing, or I'm bad at art, I can't do art, right, like anything else. But when you break down something like drawing into light, shadow, lines, form, into learnable components, turns out in 5 days, this is what people create. This isn't just 5 days. And this is a course I think still goes on for today. And after 5 days, when these students go through learning about those components that I mentioned, this is what they're able to produce, right? Pretty close to something you might pay a lot of money for. And the woman that runs the course is Betty Edwards, and what she says is kind of nothing that we haven't heard before. We've heard the term that our brains are plastic, right? This concept of neuroplasticity, this idea that our brains continue to grow, but we have to stimulate it, right? And that's kind of the fundamental thesis to aging in place successfully. What we find is that a lot of the folks that come to us say, I'm just watching TV all day, or I'm sleeping all day, or friends have moved away, children are far, and I really just need something to engage and connect. And at Evergreen, we see this all the time. People learn new things, they form new connections, they learn different ways of going about problem solving. They learn how to express themselves creatively when they might have just sort of maybe shrugged something off. And that's really what I think is at the heart of what we do, the fact that we can continue to learn and grow and teach ourselves new skills. But we have to be in a place to do it. To give you some examples, so we have members from age 61 to 101, and age doesn't necessarily always correlate with cognitive capabilities, but we have folks that come to us from the senior center and feel, we have great senior centers in the area, but there might not be a good fit for someone that maybe can't drive anymore or that needs more continuous programming. We talk about the sandwich generation, right? I had a daughter come in one time. She was caring for her mom, and she looks around. She says, "This is for me. It's for my mom, but it's really for me." Right? We're also here to give the caregiver some respite. And lastly, we see a lot of spousal memberships as well. Husband and wife. Wife brings her husband in, or vice versa. And as one is caring for their other, this allows them to get some respite. So with that concludes my presentation. I invite you all to come in. We offer a complimentary day. Plus, we have live music all the time, which is open to everybody, and it's completely complimentary. Today, it's a bit of a local legend, Joe Corsello, play with a pianist and a saxophonist. It was fantastic. He was one of the last drummers to play with Benny Goodman. It was a great concert. We all walked away. And we always stay for coffee and Beldotti's after. So you're all welcome to check out our website and see when we have our next live performance. Thank you, everyone.
See, I would be drinking all day. That's. Hey, I'm Steve Gladstone, and I know most of you. It's not like I have to, except you two, and welcome. To know me, or to know a little bit about me, I've been doing home inspections in this area for over 42 years, and started out coming here as someone with a master's in special ed and a degree in counselor ed, and working with kids in the schools here and doing counseling for drug liberation program. And I did that for a bunch of years, and then got into contracting, and then got into home inspection, and found a passion for what I do because it's fun. I actually walk around with people and teach them about their houses and use my teaching degree to discuss how a heating system works and how air conditioning works and all the rest of it. I was also on the radio for 20 years. Some of you know of that. And the name of the show was Around the House with Steve Gladstone. And we talked about anything and everything on Saturday mornings for 2 hours. So there are a lot of people who know of me. And one of the funny stories I tell people is that I was on a Viking ship in Norway, and the people next to me were sitting and having coffee. There were 4 women, and I overheard them say that they were the dead wife group, which was terrible. And I said, why would you call yourself that? And she said, well, we've all lost our husbands. And she said, I know your voice. She was from Greenwich. Never know. But the reason why I'm here today is because my experience with aging in place has been rather dramatic. I have my daughter and 3 of her kids living with me, young kids. My daughter's in her 40s. But I had my father-in-law living with me from the time he was 93 until he turned 100, and it changed our lives. I had to, and I'm a very handy person, I had to change the doorway going to my master bedroom so that a walker or a wheelchair could go in. I had to put grab bars in my shower, and I had to actually give up my master bedroom in order for him to not have to do stairs. For 7 years, he was the king of my house. My wife was never going to let him be cold, so we had to put in additional heating systems to make him comfortable. When he passed, a couple of weeks after his 100th birthday, I started dealing with my parents. And I have an apartment in the back of my house that my parents helped to finance, and my mother made it to her 80s and then went through hospice here in Stamford and made it for like 3 days, and then she was gone. My father is 97, and he lives with us half the year, and the rest of the time he just travels. 97 years old, still driving, which is a scary thought. But he drives to visit my sister in Houston, then he drives to visit my sister in Rochester. Now he's got an 81-year-old girlfriend that he met in Rochester. So he's doing fine, but we are still providing for him in the apartment. And I don't know what slide is up. We're doing more and more inspections for seniors to look for safety items in their houses. And we're doing it because I want to, not because we need to make a whole bunch of money. So we're doing it at a substantial discount, and we are looking for outside stuff, but a lot of inside stuff, tripping areas. I think that if you show those slides, I like illuminated lights, light switches, so that people can find the light switch, because I know that vision is a real problem. My father has one eye that looks one eye that looks up towards Mars, and the other one he can see out of. So his driving is even more interesting. But the switches like this are very easy and not particularly expensive, but you can find them. The other things that I look for are trip hazards. This is a sliding glass door that I put these mats next to, because you got to remember to just lift your foot up a little bit, otherwise you're falling into the next room. A lot of times when we're doing home inspections, we actually see staircases 2 steps into a sunken living room. We have some very expensive houses, but they were not really designed for the elderly. And so I always recommend putting some tape on that bottom step so that you can see it, okay? This is what I did in my father's bathroom. We renovated the bathroom and we put in a zero clearance. He doesn't have to step up. He can walk right into the shower because when my mother was still alive, he would hold her. So I put grab bars all the way around that were attractive and didn't look like, some of the handicapped stuff, so that the bathroom was attractive and it's pitched towards that drain. So in theory, if they're careful, they don't put water anywhere else. But that all went into the design. And we're always suggesting ways to make houses safer. The next one, that's the same thing. Go to the next one. Is grab bars near the toilet, because it's hard to get up if you have certain disabilities. We'll just leave it at that. So she's got something to grab onto, and we put in a bidet. And the bidet makes a big difference because it just makes everything easier. Okay, so we suggesting different things. Next slide. I put this grab bar in because this was the bathroom she uses the most for the toilet. She's able to actually grab and pull herself up. And this is one of the showers. And then the other thing that I did, and I did this for my father-in-law, is I put in a walk-in bathtub. And this was delightful for him. He would get in, lock the door, fill it up, and while it was filling, he would shave. And it has 6 jets in it. He would be able to have a nice experience, and then he would drain it down without opening the door. And my only fear was, you see the shower head hand holder, was that I thought he was going to power wash the whole bathroom, but he never did. Everything was good that way. So what I try and do when I'm doing any inspection for people is to identify the problem areas if somebody is concerned about it. So a lot of times people will say, my parents are going to come live with us. We're renovating the basement, we're renovating the downstairs area, or we're giving them the primary bedroom and bathroom on the main floor. And we'll actually give them some advice, even if they don't ask for it, because I want them to be safe. All right? So what we're doing now is we're offering that to more people. So if you know people who are interested in having a quick walkthrough through their house to make some suggestions, if they're open to that, they don't have to spend a lot of money, they don't have to go to a lot, they can ignore everything that we say. And some people will, I understand that. But it's an educational thing, and no risk, no big deal, and we're doing it for $300, which I think is nothing. Normally, when we do an inspection, it typically starts at about $700, $800 and goes up depending on testing. There's no testing involved in this. It's just a walkthrough. That's what I wanted to put forward. Is that enough? Okay.
I have some props. So what are we trying to do here today? First, Gabe is telling us how we can, utilize different kinds of services, like, in order to basically not move to the next level of care. Steve is making sure that the home is safe so that we're not moving on to the next level of care, hopefully. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to keep people where they want to be, which is at home. And my background's a little bit different. I'm actually a nursing home administrator, and people get really nervous about that. They're like, are you gonna put me in a nursing home? I'm like, no. I was a nursing home administrator before I was an attorney, and my goal is to make sure that people don't move through the continuum of care. People start out at an independent level, and then they move through to assisted and then nursing home, but that's not a fait accompli. Not everybody has to move through the continuum. And my thing is, if you're keeping somebody in the right level of care and you're doing things like making sure they're safe during the day, going to Gabe's place, and you're making sure the home is safe, there's no reason why somebody has to progress through the continuum. I had a talk yesterday, I'm part of the sandwich generation. I have a mother who's elderly. I have in-laws that are elderly. I have kids that are in their teens. So I'm right smack. I'm right where you guys are. So I know what it's like. And I'm telling my mother yesterday, it's Mother's Day. Look, Mom, if you throw out another caregiver, I don't know what we're going to do. You got to keep them. You know, oh, they eat my food. I said, you know what? I said, yes, they eat your food, but guess what? You're going to wind up in a nursing home if you don't accept the care. So I'm having the same conversations that everybody's having every single day. And, you know, what we're trying to do is we're trying to solve problems. And problems are more and more people have cognitive disorders. The cost of long-term care is astronomical. You know, and what I tell people is long-term care costs are like a faucet. They just keep running. It is not uncommon for me to have clients call me and say, I'm spending $30,000 a month, $40,000 a month. People don't understand these numbers because what happens is your brain shuts down. You know, you spend that kind of money 1 year in college, once a year. You never won't spend that every month. And with long-term care costs, it multiplies and multiplies and multiplies. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to educate people and give them clear guidance on what you can do when you hit a crisis point being mom or dad's in the hospital, they're being discharged. What do I do? You'll want to get and you want to plan early. Planning early means you're looking to the future and saying what might happen and mitigating your risks. So making sure that there are tools that you can do now to try to secure your future. And knowing that most people want to stay home, creating an environment and a plan so that they can do that. Believe it or not, it starts with the documents, the basic documents. And people underestimate why they are so important. Today, I got a call. There's a woman in Norwalk Hospital who is very, very sick and going on in hospital hospice, inpatient hospice. She probably has less than a week to live. And first thing I said was, where's the power of attorney? Where is it? And the daughter's in the UK, of course, and she sends it to me. I said, great, we can probably get a trust done for you. You know, we can make this so it's much easier. So you have funds. You're not using your credit cards in order to go and pay for your mom's funeral, which is a really sad thing to have to do, and a lot of people might have to do that if they don't act quick. So most people think that just having these documents, I'm going to discuss them in a minute, is enough. It's not. You have to know what your documents say. So people often wave things and say, look what I have. And I'm like, okay, let me read it. Oh, this doesn't allow you to do anything that you're going to need to do later on. So we start with the power of attorney. Power of attorney is the most important document you could have. Why? Because it governs while you're alive. Everyone's always fixated about when they die, but there may be a long time until you die. So we care about what's happening to you right now. Power of attorney is a financial document. And what it says is that either currently or when I can't make a financial decision for myself, this is the person I want to make that financial decision. And what it says is very important. A lot of times people have power of attorney, you know, that basically is only good for a closing, a house closing. That doesn't help you when you're having a long-term care crisis. So making sure you understand what that document says is vital, especially when you go to need to use it. The next is the healthcare proxy. Healthcare proxy is the document which allows you to pick somebody to make healthcare decisions when you cannot. And it's very simple. When I can't make my healthcare decisions, when I can't make my healthcare decisions, then this is the person that I'm selecting. And then you have successors. The living will tells the healthcare agent what you want or don't want at end of life. As a nursing home administrator, this was the most important document because a lot of times this was a document which meant that the person wouldn't get life-sustaining treatment at end of life. And they were making their own decisions. So that takes the onus off the spouse, off of the kids to make that kind of decision because you've made it for yourself. The next document is the Advanced Conservatorship Directive. That is a document that many people are unfamiliar with. The state of Connecticut, you might have to go to court to have decision makers if your documents are inadequate or you don't have the right documents at a time when you lack capacity, when you're in a situation where you can't make a decision. So the Advanced Conservatorship Directive says if I have to go to court, this is the person I want to represent me, to be my conservator. Why is that important? Because the courts often appoint an attorney who doesn't know you. Imagine someone that doesn't know you making your financial and healthcare decisions, a lot of times things that you wouldn't have made yourself. That's what happens when you go to court. It's very unpredictable. And a lot of times they pick attorneys who are just doing it for a buck. It's a horrible system, by the way. So those are the documents that govern while you're alive and when you lose capacity. Power of attorney, healthcare proxy, living will, advanced conservatorship directive. When you die, your last will and testament governs those assets that you own solely. Now that's great, but you want to make sure that while you're alive, you're using your assets for yourself. So during your lifetime, in the middle, between life and death, is when we talk about trusts. And people often have a lot of misconceptions about trusts. They think that they're for the wealthy. Well, they're actually for smart people. That's who they're for. You know, there's two types. There's a revocable trust, which I love using a Snapple bottle. It's what happens is you put your assets in the trust. Once they're in there, they're yours. You can use them liberally. If during your lifetime you get sick, the next trustee can take care of them. Make sure that you live at home. Make sure you go to Evergreen for your adult daycare. Make sure you can hire Steve. Pay all your bills. Very, very seamless. When you die, distributes automatically outside of probate. I don't know how many of you have gone through probate in the state of Connecticut. It's expensive and it takes forever. And there's a lot of forms. You know, this eliminates that. This way you can pay for your parents' funerals. You can start distributing the assets to the family members, etc. Becomes very, very simple. The second type of trust is an irrevocable trust. This trust I start talking about at age 70 because what happens is when you put an asset in an irrevocable trust, this is a Medicaid asset protection trust, that asset is secured after 5 years. That means if you ever need to go on Medicaid for home care or nursing home services, that asset does not count after 5 years. It stays there. Now, especially when you're talking about your home, that you might want to leave a legacy for your family or stay there, the home is secured. A lot of times, that's the most important thing that we put into the trust, that we put in the primary home. So then that primary home can be used for your family after. You know, a lot of times people have disabled children. They have all sorts of difficult situations, and a lot of people really want to secure their assets for their family. And most people think, well, if I secure my assets, then I'm going to have to go into a really bad nursing home. The truth is, nursing homes don't know what payment source you're really on, because while you're there, you could start on Medicare after a 3-night stay. You can then go to Medicaid. You know, then you could be private pay. You could be commercial insurance. Most nursing homes don't really know what payment source. When you're getting the care that you are, you don't get worse care if you're on Medicaid, but you could actually secure those assets. So the Medicaid Asset Protection Trust is probably the number one thing that we do in order to secure people's legacies in their homes, which becomes very important to them. You know, what we also do is we have a multidisciplinary approach to care. You know, when you think about how difficult your lives are, your life seems simple to you. You know where your bank accounts are, you know where your friends are, you know what you want for your lifetime, but people's lives are very, very complicated. So we work with different types of people. We work with Steve, we work with Gabe, we work with care managers, we work with home care companies, we work with financial advisors and CPAs. And what happens is you get a comprehensive plan together. The plan takes on a shape of 3 time periods. What do we need to do right now? Like this woman, her mom is going on hospice, we got to get a trust for her, like within the next 2 days. What are we going to do in 5 years? Put a house in a trust and then secure it after the 5-year look-back period. What are we going to do in the time in the middle when someone needs to go on assisted living or their care changes? So we have plans that we make, and they involve you. So we get your input and we get your team's input. We look at the finances because all of this has to do with money. We look at where is it that you want to go? Do you want to live at home? Might you want to go to an assisted living in a couple of years? Do you have long-term care insurance? So it's a comprehensive look at your whole world and looking how we can use Medicaid, veterans, et cetera, to supplement your care as well as your income. It's funny, people come, oh, look at my assets. I'm like, well, tell me what your income is, because assets go out the window very, very quickly with long-term care. But the income is usually forever. So you want to look at your income, and that's what determines how you can live and where you could live. We look at reverse mortgages. They're very expensive, but if that's what's between leaving your home and staying at home, and that's important to you, we'll look to see how much it costs. So the planning becomes very important, and most people think, well, it's too late. Well, it's never too late, because there's always something that we can do. The sooner you start, though, the better the outcomes later on. And that's really what we're trying to get across here. That even if it's just doing a power of attorney and healthcare proxy, if you do nothing else, at a time where you become incapacitated, that's going to save a lot and save you from going to court. You know, you do a trust, great. You don't do a trust, fine. It could be too early. It could be, the answer could be, I want to look into a trust and do it later. But you have the information. And it makes you very, very popular at cocktail parties too, because this isn't just something that you're all going through and I'm going through. This is something that everybody's going through, and it's what everybody is talking about. So it's vital that you have the information and you become the trainers that go out there and say, look, if something happens, this is who you call and this is what you can do. So, I'm deputizing all of you tonight as long-term care experts, and going out there and utilize us. We're people, and we have this information, and we want people to ask us questions, and and also if you need us, just give us a call. But you're not alone, and that's what people think. It's I don't know what to do, and I have to figure it all out myself. Not at all. There's a lot of resources out there, and that's what our goal is, to give it all to you. Thank you.
So do you guys, the three of you want to come up and
We can lean. I have to stand up. Okay.
are there any questions from the audience?
Are IRAs, are they treated differently with assets, or?
Depends what state you're in. In New York, they are treated differently. In Connecticut, they are not. They're part of the equation.
I will.
Can they force you to take the IRA, to pay down, go down the IRA?
So nobody forces you to do anything. It's just a matter of if you're going to need, if you want the state to pay for home care or nursing home care. If you have a spouse, you could do an annuity. You can actually turn the IRA into an annuity and make the state the first beneficiary. So there are things you can do with an IRA.
I will tell you that Mike did all my stuff for my family several years ago, and I just don't worry about it anymore. I know it's done, and it just gives me a sense of security that I don't have to worry about the house. My kids are going to get the house. My kids are going to get, well, some of them will get. I haven't told them yet. No, but I don't worry about it because it's taken care of, and it was taken care of properly, so it's done. And if something needs to be changed, then it gets changed. It's a phone call and a change. I think that's important. I think that we're all looking for, not having a surprise at the end. And I did an inspection 2 days ago. The condo's been in probate for 5 years.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how irritating that is to the family? 5 years they've waited to sell it.
Yeah, I can tell you, my mom passed about 2 years ago. Everything was done legally, correctly, and we just sat there and watched this whole thing go through. And I said to my sister, if we didn't have this done, can you imagine if we had to wait to go through probate? So you're absolutely right. Get it done right, and then just don't worry about it.
When my mother passed, my parents had taken care of all of the funeral stuff way ahead of time. And it was smooth. It was terrible, but it was smooth. And we didn't have to worry about the expenses of it. Half of it had already been paid, and it was paid for much less money than what they would have charged us when she actually passed. So taking care of business is really an important aspect in all of this.
You're in a very vulnerable spot too, because we went through that.
You mean right here?
We felt like my great grandmother's funeral, that the funeral folks were trying to, uptick us. Don't you want the Cadillac in the casket? I'm like, wait a minute, hold on a second. No, but I felt that real big
It's a big business.
Plus, more importantly, it's very difficult at the time that somebody passes to go through, picking out a casket and those things. It's much better to do it now. Plus, it's going to be less expensive. But to do it now when, you're not faced with that, and then just to make a phone call and it's all taken care of, because people don't realize they're going to grieve, and it happens to everybody. And the last thing they want to do is go through that.
I've got a question. Steve, what are some of the areas of the home people often forget that they need to check out on a regular basis?
Thanks for asking, because the most common thing that I get as far as questions is, I will do an inspection for mom. Mom is going to move into, she's living in her house now, and she'll call up and I want to have a radon test, or I want to have my water tested. And she'll say to me, I haven't been in the attic since my husband died. And I said, well, how long ago was that? She said, over 6 years. And I'll say, no one's gone in the attic? No. Or no one's gone in the basement. I hear noises down there, but I'm afraid to go down there. Could be a pipe leaking, could be a rodent, could be anything. People don't realize that things get old too and end up breaking. And I understand people being afraid. I mean, even during inspections, I get women who don't want to go up in the attic at all. I'm never going up there. And yet, one of the things that I always recommend when I'm talking about care of houses is when it's raining hard, go up in the attic and see if anything's leaking. Go down in the basement and make sure that things are okay. If you don't go down there, that's the big mystery. So I get that question a lot.
Is there some aspect of the home that is more of a danger to the older people than anybody in general?
One of the things I really don't like are auto starts on the car. Because if you push that button, and it's something that kids like to do, the grandkids, you got to be careful with the keys. But if that car is running in the garage, the next day we may not have parents.
Wow.
I love advising people to get carbon monoxide detectors to make sure that they change the batteries on the smoke detectors. I'm the president of Belltown Fire Department. I mean, I've been a fireman for over 40 years. The bottom line is people don't change the batteries until they start beeping at 2 o'clock in the morning. The new ones that are coming out now have forever batteries. They have batteries that last 10 years, then you throw it away. You can't replace the batteries anymore. And it's becoming the normal thing. So it's going to be a lot safer. But people have to buy it, put it in their house. That's one.
What about like alert systems? Can you talk about
I was writing a little giveaway about different things that you can do in your house. And some of us are wearing, is that a smartwatch? There are smartwatches now that will alert your family that you've fallen. There are necklaces and lanyards that you can buy. My father-in-law, when he was 97, went out on the deck, the door closed, he was locked out. I got a call from the alert saying he was in trouble. What was he? He was locked out. But it was important because I didn't want him, stranded on the deck for the whole evening. So those things are really important, and a lot of people fall. I've fallen. You don't have to be old to fall. But if you can't get up or you can't notify somebody, you could be, what a terrible thing to be lying on a floor for 2 days until someone finds you. So I think they're a real good idea. We actually, with my mother, she had one, and it would set off chimes in different parts of the house. So we were there, but we wouldn't have known that she needed something. And she used it, I'm hungry, I need a drink, I need this, I need that. But it was good.
So, Gabe, how do you tailor activities to match the cognitive and physical abilities of individuals with different stages of dementia?
Well, we do have quite a range of abilities, cognitively and physically, and I think what we found is that there are some activities that are what I call great equalizers. So music can be enjoyed by anyone at any stage. Certain physical exercises are good to do in group, but really the magic comes in when you break off into much smaller groups. So one of the things that we have in place is staffing ratio that's between 4 and 5 to 1. So very tight staffing ratios, much more intimate than you'll find anywhere else, and that's what creates the kind of small group dynamic. And we do that to make sure that people are stimulated with other folks that are at their level cognitively. So, for example, when we do certain, it's really incredible. For example, we have a gentleman that has aphasia, which is, to put it simply, is essentially when the brain and the mouth don't quite connect. He's great he's the best ping pong player ever, right? And he's incredibly present. But when we do, for example, the cranium crunch brain games, he's not going to be able to keep up. So out of concern for his dignity, we will create a smaller group and have him do a different type of exercise that is more agreeable with him. But really it comes down to small groups, knowing the members, knowing also because these are folks that have cognitive impairment or dementia, they can get irritated, frustrated, feel anxious. And so the more you know about the individual, you know how to redirect and manage those types of behaviors. So I think it comes down to knowing the members, small groups. We also do a pretty big intake form to understand who they were, what they did for a living, what their pastimes are, what their hobbies, what music they like, what food they like, they don't like. So we get to know them pretty intimately, and that plays a lot in the programming.
When I was there, they were really happy. They were playing games and they were doing things that was of interest to them, and it was daycare. It was wonderful. Yeah.
Do many of your members also have sort of home care, say a few days a week, then they come to your location a few times a week as a way to sort of vary their week?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we have some folks that have a live-in aid. We have some folks that have an aid a few hours a week. I think we're a very complementary solution to home care because what we have is kind of the group dynamic, and it's at an accessible price point, right? But for some people that need help in the morning or help in the evening to help out, to give a respite to the caregiver, that's only something that, say, a home care provider can give. So very complimentary, and a lot of our members have some help at home like that. Yep.
Great.
I have a question. For you, Michael. So I'm assuming that most of the documents you mentioned don't need to be updated ever, but my other assumption is that how often should a will be updated?
The short answer is wills should never be updated. You have to do a new will when you're going to update a will, because they're very likely challenged as you age. The documents should be looked at every 2 years, and they absolutely should be updated because your life changes. The people that you may have selected to be successors may have passed away. They may have their own health challenges. So it's important to know what's going on in your life and other people's lives. So basically, the documents should be looked at every 2 to 3 years, and there are changes in the law that happen every now and then, but a lot of times it's the changes in the people that you're selecting, and it's if your power of attorney went bankrupt or is in prison or all of these things, which could happen, you probably would want to change them out and look for other people. And also, people move away a lot more now than other times, and that may be a consideration for you.
When somebody works with you, or calls you and wants to get one of these documents put together, what is your process? How does that work?
So usually we do a call or a Zoom, and we just talk about what's going on in your world, and then I invite them to come in, and then we'll go through everything, and we'll go through what's going on. And then we get retained. We do a free consult, and then we get retained, and then we draft and we review and then sign. It's about a 3 to 4 week process from start to finish. Okay.
Michael, I know it sounds simple, but what's the difference between a will and a trust?
So a will only governs after you pass away, and a will goes through probate, which is how the court oversees the distribution of your assets. And only those assets that you own solely go through your will. A trust is a vehicle which is operative during your lifetime and operative after you pass away. The difference between making an amendment to a trust is you just amend that one part, whatever it is. I want the executor to be this. I want, you just amend that small part that you want to change. I want to leave my grandchildren $50,000 when I die versus everything to my spouse, what have you, or to my children. A will, when you're going to make an amendment to a will called a codicil, usually we just tell you to do a new will, because that change and every change that you make goes to all your beneficiaries when you die. So it can be, a difficult situation, and then it usually encourages estate litigation. A trust usually does not.
Are there ongoing costs once you create a trust?
No.
So it's similar in that will, in the sense you created it, it's there until.
Correct. Yeah, there's no ongoing costs.
Does it get reported to the state?
It's a private document, doesn't get reported anywhere. Unlike your will, which is another differentiation, bless you. A will is public. After you die, it's public. You can go down to the probate court. You can look up anybody's will. But a trust is a private document. It doesn't get reported. Bless you.
But you have to pay taxes on the trust, don't you?
Not a revocable trust. It's a pass-through entity. An irrevocable trust, if there's no income distribution, then yes.
I mean, let's say if you put all your assets in the trust, it's generating income. That you have to pay taxes on, don't you?
If the trust is written in such a way that your income is not distributed to you, yes. If it's written in a way that your income is distributed to you, then no. It depends. The answer, unfortunately, is it depends on what you have. Determines what happens, and what you have as far as what your decisions are, not what your assets are.
What is the amount of money that you can have in a trust or whatever vehicle before the state, which will pass through non-taxable here in the state?
14 million. Yeah, the estate tax exemption equals the federal this year. It's $14 million. So if you don't have 14 million, and there's ways that you could protect, 14 million for you and then 14 million for your spouse. So it's actually $28 million that you could secure without estate taxes.
Does anybody have a problem with that?
Surprised that it's that much. I mean, not just that.
And that's based on states as well. New York at $7.1 million. So if you cross over to Greenwich, you could be in trouble. We're good. That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks everyone for attending, and we will be posting this video live, and I'll send it out to you or to anyone else who's gotten an email from.
Thank you.
Thanks,
for
guys.
coming. There's free stuff in the back, by the way.